There are things that maybe you've overcome in your life that someone could bring up and it's like not a big problem, but then there's other sensitive topics or experiences you might have gone through that you're not ready to just have everybody know. And that's okay. It's okay to be more private. I just feel like our modern world has like stripped away the concept of privacy and kind of vilified people who want to be private, but it's not wrong. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Caitlin and I run the blog called Mrs. Midwest. Today's video is going to be all about the topic of feminine mystery. And if you've been here before, you know that I love discussing the topic of femininity. Although I do not consider myself an expert, I do view myself as a very passionate aficionado. So what is feminine mystery? Well, it is a concept that has been around for a very long time. Femininity has always been enshrined in a level of mystery. It of course goes along with the quintessential feminine act of creating a baby within your womb in a very concealed manner. There's this mystery of the feminine body that can develop that child within her, bring life into the world. But then there's also the feminine mystery in the sense of the beautiful feminine woman. You know, we have our Audrey Hepburns, we have our Kate Middletons, Grace Kelly. We also have the concepts of the divine feminine, the mysterious feminine, the mysterious Mother Earth. Mystery and femininity have traditionally gone hand in hand. But how does that affect us modern women? Well, as you guys know, I always like to beep out my little complaints of modern society, and I really do feel we have a lack of mystery and an overexposure of people. And I do believe that many people nowadays believe that you need to be very overexposed, very vulnerable to every single person around you in order to be seen as authentic or genuine. I know a lot of people even love movies like Bridesmaids, where you see a bunch of women acting very uncouth, quite vulgar, displaying all of their emotions, all of their bodily functions, all of their insecurities, just exposing. And I think there's a level to that was very avant-garde, very shocking. But now we live in a society where almost nothing is shocking. It's more shocking now for someone to be traditional, to be a homemaker, to pursue elegance, or to try to be feminine than it is for someone to display that overexposed, vulgar behavior. And today's video is not an argument for perfectionism or being uptight, and wrongfully so. I feel like femininity and the idea of being mysterious within your femininity, or even mysterious as a person, has been kind of mocked by a lot of modern entertainment and our modern society. You know, a lot of those people are seen to be really uptight perfectionists, or people who are hiding a huge secret behind their mystery, or women who actually don't have it all together, but they're just pretending for the world. And while that might be the case for some people, I do believe a lot of women sometimes just prefer to be more feminine. They like to have things together, and they're not hiding a deep, dark secret. They just like living life that way. And while vulnerability is a very strengthening and positive thing in many ways, in a lot of other instances, it can cause people to kind of lose touch with boundaries and lose touch with elegance in general and lose touch with their own sense of privacy. So speaking as a person who really values privacy, values that mysterious femininity, I wanted to guide you along the 7 different ways to really embrace feminine mystery, starting with the first area, which is all about having elegant emotions. As I always say, femininity is about being mature, not girly, like a little child. It's about having that maturity to you. And with that comes an element of self-control. And I do believe that if you want to portray that feminine mystery, it is often good to keep your emotions a little bit under wraps. Now, this doesn't mean you need to be a robot and never react if someone is upsetting you, never stand up for yourself, never show vulnerability. No. Rather, it's about having self-control with your emotions in stressful situations. For my Christians in the audience, self-control is of course a fruit of the Spirit that we should be pursuing daily. But in general, I think as feminine women, having that self-control, choosing that emotional privacy is a way to be more mysterious. There's something so incredible about that demeanor that's almost royal, where you don't see them crack. And I think that this can be really helpful even in professional environments. It's helpful in your marriage because you can Avoid saying a lot of very damaging things in the heat of the moment. Stepping away from emotional incontinence will amplify your mystery to other people because it'll show you as a very mature person. Keep things somewhat concealed, how you really feel about something. I used to have a very hard time with this because you can tell your girl has an expressive face. And so I used to read all my emotions on my face, and when I didn't like something, you could tell. And my mom always told me, Caitlin, you wear your emotions on your face. You got to dial it back a little bit so you don't offend people. And I always felt frustrated by that advice because I was like, no, people should know how I feel. And then I realized that that was actually a very selfish perspective, to make other people feel hurt or bad about themselves just because I didn't like something. That's of course not necessary in your very deeply intimate relationships. But the type of context I'm talking about is, someone who would just whip up a Snapchat story or Instagram story and be like, man, like talking to the public, basically. So I'm talking about public interactions. Although having emotional elegance can help your private relationships as well, I don't think it's good to always conceal how you feel in those private relationships or intimate moments or appropriate times. And this brings us to the second part, and that's privacy online. If you want to be more mysterious as a woman, conceal more of yourself online. Make it a little bit more mysterious. This is especially for my single girls out there. If you are trying to attract attention from a man, it might be easy to just assume, putting it all out there and putting your location out there and just making it really easy for him is going to get you that win. But in reality, being femininely mysterious will do much more in your favor if the guy is interested in you. And that's why being mysterious is so helpful, because when we keep a little bit more to ourselves, it really weeds out people who are putting effort into our relationships. So when you're being private online, this doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a private Instagram account or you have to be so secretive. But what I'm talking about is being a little bit more modest, not just with the way you take your pictures, the way you dress, but also just concealing more of your day-to-day life, making it so that when someone spends time with you, they don't already know every single thing about you just by following you online, keeping these things a little bit more mysterious. Put an emphasis on your real life above your online life and make sure that you're sorting out your relationships, your emotions, and things in that realm before you then turn to your online life. Of course, people can have often a lot of relief and emotional relief by sharing their struggles online. That's no secret. But I would really encourage you to share them when you're ready. Don't share them when you feel like you have to or you feel like you owe it to other people. Especially for my influencers in the audience, don't feel like you need to share something before you're ready or before you've really wrapped your own mind around it. Come to terms with things, and again, place that emphasis on your real life instead of your online life. And as far as pictures, be a little bit more mysterious, be a little bit more private. This brings me to my third point, which is privacy with your vulnerabilities and weaknesses. This is kind of the idea of oversharing, okay? So when you first meet someone, you don't need to just express all of your baggage, all of your emotional vulnerabilities, and all of your weaknesses, because that person doesn't know you yet. And the thing is, I think a lot of people like to do that because then they can, be like, oh, well, then they'll love me even despite all of that baggage, et cetera, et cetera. And I do understand that. But I also think there's an argument to be made for allowing someone to get to know you and to start loving you and to really enjoy being with you. And then they can slowly earn the right to learn more about you, to learn more about your baggage. Obviously, there are some things that you need to come right out and say right upon meeting someone, especially if it's a romantic relationship. Perhaps you have a communicable disease or something that you really need to share. But in most circumstances, you can afford to wait a little bit. This is also very important because it prevents you from getting overly emotionally attached to somebody before that relationship has formed. So I really encourage you to use feminine mystery to your advantage to protect your heart, even with friendships, so that you're not oversharing right away. You're allowing those people to get to know you and love you, and then you're slowly feeding them information about you as you feel comfortable and as the relationship naturally goes to that place. It's okay to build things slowly over a period of time instead of just word vomiting all of your baggage onto somebody and hoping that they'll just love you. You know, it's okay to give people time to get to know you. And just because too someone might react negatively to that, you know, overexposure of your vulnerabilities, it doesn't mean they're a bad person necessarily. It can just be a lot to learn that much about somebody before you really, you know, spend a lot of time with them or know them or really care about them. So I encourage you to be much more private with your vulnerabilities when meeting people, but also just your weaknesses in general. You don't need to tell everybody your weaknesses, especially if they are still triggers for you or things that they can use against you. There are things that, you know, maybe you've overcome in your life that someone could bring up and it's like not a big problem, but then there's other sensitive topics or experiences you might have gone through that you're not ready to just have everybody know. And that's okay. It's okay to be more private. I just feel like our modern world has like stripped away the concept of privacy and kind of vilified people who want to be private, but it's not wrong. It's not wrong to have that instinct to protect yourself. You know, obviously if it's been a few years and your husband still doesn't know about some traumatic thing you went through as a child, that's not good or healthy, okay? So as intimacy builds, let that build as well, but you don't need to share your weaknesses with every single person, especially before you know who they are, because there's always the potential that you share a weakness with somebody who's not a good person and who will use that against you, okay? So I'm not saying never share with people, live in fear, have walls up, but I am saying be discerning, okay? So you don't need to overexpose yourself. You don't need to overshare in order to win someone's affection, approval, or bonding, intimacy, basically. It's okay to allow them to learn that stuff about you as you go along. You don't need to put it all out on the table before, because then later on in the relationship, you might be grateful that that person doesn't know certain things about you, because you might learn that, you know, they're a huge gossip or they like to kind of poke at people's insecurities, you know? So get to know people first and then share your weaknesses and vulnerabilities if they've earned the right. All right, the fourth area of feminine mystery is about pursuing interests, hobbies, and skills. This is for some reason very mysterious because I think there's something so incredibly intriguing about someone who's an individual, someone who just lives into their hobbies and who is confident about it and who might have these like skills that other people don't even know about. Independent pursuits that are different than just scrolling on Instagram and watching Netflix, you know, build into your interests. And these don't just have to be creative things or physical kind of creating things. It could also be skills like administration, volunteering, blessing other people, whatever. Just build into your individualities and your individual skills, because that will cause you to come across as much more mysterious, because you just have so much more going on with who you are, your personality, your interests. So I really encourage you to develop those interests. And if you don't know what they are, start exploring, and nothing is too silly to be explored. And we all have more sides to us and interests than we would ever imagine. It's always a little bit exciting to meet someone who has a talent and learning about the things that they enjoy, because it just has more facets to their personality. Working on our talents and growing things allows us to feel extra accomplished in our real passions. And not everyone is fortunate enough to do their passions at their job. And so having talent development can really round out your life and stimulate your mind in an incredible way. All right, the fifth part of feminine mystery is not talking too much. This has to do with vulnerability, but really it's just learning to read the room, learning when to speak and when to listen. And I do think it's okay to chit chat and just talk, but I really encourage you to pay attention to when someone wants to hear you chit chat and when someone would rather just embrace the quiet or talk about themselves. Don't give into gossipy situations, don't spread rumors about people, don't slander, and really be careful with your language. This will provide you a much more mysterious framework that will be much more attractive to other people to be around. Think before you speak and be very careful who you're speaking to and what you're saying. You never know when what you're saying is going to get around to other people, and I really encourage you to question if you should have even said it in the first place. So as you're working on feminine mystery, remember that there is something so intriguing about a person who is confident in themselves and can listen to you and learn about you, and also someone that you kind of have to ask questions to get to know them. You know, they're not just going to display everything right away. This leaves us with the sixth and final point for this video, which is about keeping the behind the scenes a little more secret. And that is, of course, about beauty. You know, I noticed the difference between when I leave the bathroom doors open and I do my makeup and I dry my hair and I get dressed and my husband sees the whole process versus when I do it with closed doors and then I just come out looking like all done up. You know, the second situation, I don't think he realizes this, but he always like looks up and he's like, oh wow, you look really nice today. Whereas when the bathroom's open and he can see the whole process, I don't get that same compliment. And I don't think it's because I don't look nice those days. I think it's because that mystery enhances the transformation, that feminine beauty. You know, I may or may not be onto something there, who knows, but I do know that I like to keep things a little bit more private. If you're living with me, if you stay with me, you will see me in all states, but I like to keep things more elegant, you know, more put together in my day-to-day life. I like to keep hygiene mysterious. I don't like to talk about, you know, health hygiene in situations where the person might feel uncomfortable. So again, just keep those behind the scenes private unless the context of the situation allows for you to share. You know, I can talk about feminine hygiene stuff with my best girlfriends and we can just but I wouldn't talk about that to my brother or an acquaintance or someone who would just feel uncomfortable. So again, read the room, and if you can, be a little bit more mysterious about the transformation of how you get ready for an event or in the morning. But that's all I have for you today. I hope that you can remain mysterious. If you have feminine mystery tips, please drop them below. Everyone benefits when you guys add to the conversation. In total, if you're interested in more of this kind of content, I do have a lot of videos on my channel all about femininity. So thank you so much for watching. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, check out my written blog, but in total, I hope you have a wonderfully blessed and mysterious week, my beautiful sisters.